One of the proudest moments of my career, I think from a business perspective, was when I floated my own company on the stock exchange. That was just one of those, you could never imagine you might ever be the person who does it. And then one day everything has fallen into place and we did it. And it happened to be just as NASDAQ hit the peak at the beginning of the dot-com boom and bust. So it was the end of the boom and the beginning of the bust. So not only was it the proudest moment, I can remember it and it's there in the history books. To take a big step back, I think the most important thing for the context of this about engineering is it's a profession. And so the answer to that question is how does a profession, how over the centuries have professions added to the sum of human knowledge and the quality of their people? And the answer is obviously standards, codes of conduct, and then drawing in new talent, refreshing the talent all the time. And lots of talent finds it hard. It's better than that. It doesn't just find it hard. It sees impenetrable barriers. So somebody wants to be an engineer, and then they start to work out how it might happen. It looks so difficult. And then you meet an engineer, and they seem amazing. And you think, well, I could never be like that. And the answer to that is to be able to do outreach, to connect with people with the talent and the interest, and make the path easier for them. And so scholarships, telling the stories, letting people realize that it's just anybody can do it if they've got the talent and the energy, is all part of refreshing a profession. Some professions don't do that, and they are stuck in the 18th century, the 17th century, or whatever, not naming any. But engineering is such a critical one, it's important that regeneration process and that attraction process, that outreach, happens all of the time. Therefore, scholarships are key. The important thing about widening the aperture, if you will, for talent is that somebody who gets an itch to want to do something then suddenly discovers all the barriers that get in the way. And there are two huge ones. One is money, obviously, but the second one is just somebody to help you. Because if you're privileged and money's not an object and dad can talk to a friend at work and get somebody to make an introduction and so on, which is nothing wrong with that. That's part of how the world goes round. But that gives an unfair advantage to the person who doesn't have those kinds of connections. And money can be taken away with a scholarship or a bursary. But usually with scholarships and bursaries comes mentoring as well, comes connections with people. So I think it overcomes two barriers. And then finally, of course, it's advertising. It's saying we are open for business. And so people that wouldn't perhaps take that first nervous step, see the advert and think, well, maybe I don't want a scholarship or a bursary, or maybe they don't get one. But they see that it's available to them. They've thought about the profession. Well, it's really difficult. So nobody should assume it's simple. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's really a passion. You have to have an objective, a holy grail. You want to do something in the world. All the best entrepreneurs that I've worked with, and I've been privileged to advise quite a few well-known, famous entrepreneurs, they've all got this idea in the distance of what they want to do, how they want to change the world. I'm chairman of a big payments company in Nigeria, these days InterSwitch. Their chief executive, who started the business 17 years ago and is an engineer, he wants to drive social inclusion through finance in Africa by giving mobile payment capabilities to people in villages and so on. And that's what he cares about. And he doesn't want to work the technology, he cares about that objective. If you don't have that burning desire to do something, you're probably not going to be an entrepreneur. You can still be a business person, you can still start your own company, but they won't get you over the bumps and the difficulties that being an entrepreneur inevitably throws in your path.
Thank you very much.
Well, alongside is probably correct. They're definitely two different worlds, but this has given me the most amazing privilege in the UK. I do two things. I'm a businessman and I'm a philanthropist. So over the many years now, I've made money, given it away. I've chaired charities, I've worked for charities, I've done those sorts of things. And I suddenly find myself in a position where each day, each week, I'm able to pull this enormous lever of doing good. Again, driving social inclusion, which is my passion. And being associated with the royal family does two things. It brings obviously a sense of honor and responsibility, but it also opens all kinds of doors that I didn't even know existed. It allows me to be introduced to people that I would otherwise never have met. Just today, for example, Her Majesty went to the UCL hospital, the new ear, nose and throat hospital, to open the new, well, it's actually a new hospital, but the new wing, UCL hospital. And there are some of the great and the good, medics, medical scientists, medical engineers, and I find myself walking around talking to people who are changing the world for the better. And because the Queen is there, I'm in my uniform, therefore standing out somewhat, I get to have conversations I would never ever have had before, and we exchange cards and we talk about how we might be able to do more good. So they are meshed together. It allows me to make a bigger point, if I could, about engineering and the IET, because your focus is on improving the world through engineering, actually helping people live better lives. What does the Queen and the royal family stand for? They stand precisely for bringing us together, driving community, helping us have better lives. So I see a complete connection between the two. Well, the very first time I met the Queen, I think I wondered why my tongue wouldn't work. The most remarkable thing, I must say, about the royal family, I draw a distinction between members of the royal family, celebrities and politicians. They all have different roles to play in our society, so I'm not going to judge the other two. But today, for example, the Queen talked to 8 or 9 nurses and administrators, and as she went round the corner having spoken to them, they all started jumping up and down. There's just something wonderful about seeing the sense of duty, of values, of commitment and so on. But it was quite hard to speak the first time. This whole subject of diversity and inclusion is another one of my passions. I've discovered over, well, probably 15, 20 years now, that when I try and talk to senior business people about diversity and inclusion, they nod. But you can see the lights are going out because they're hearing blah, 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 social justice, blah, 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 social justice. However, if I say to them, this is a matter of competitive advantage, if your organization can't empathize with your customers, your supply chain, your regulators, your employees, if you can't empathize with them, you know what? You will not be as successful as companies that do. Therefore, making sure your workforce is representative of those different stakeholder groups is a competitive imperative as opposed to a blah, blah, blah social justice point. And whether we're talking about any of the defined characteristics from age, gender, ethnicity, etc., etc., it really doesn't matter because all those people are in the population, they're in the regulator, they're in the supply chain. So if you don't understand them, you can't relate to them, you will be at a competitive disadvantage. So my message to the employer universe is you need to make sure that you've got that empathy. To the employee universe, I say the opposite side, which is if you've got talent and people don't want to employ you, they won't necessarily be in business in the future. So don't see it as a disadvantage to yourself, see it as a disadvantage to them. And go and find somebody out there, and in these times of full employment, go out and find somebody who does want to employ you and sees your capabilities and your skills. Now, it's easy for me to say all those things, and I sit here today at the pinnacle of various peaks of my life. For lots of people, shy, introvert and so on, that's blah, 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 yeah, it's okay for you and not for me. So the role model part is really important because one of the defenses that people have for not even trying is, but there is nobody like me in there doing those sorts of things. And what the Power List has done is to show people of colour across the entire spectrum of contribution to society. So that excuse goes away, that reason goes away, and then people can take that, process it themselves, and hopefully use it to their advantage. I have relatively recently realised that 5G has the capability, and the fact it has the capability means it will, but it has the capability to transform the way we do things in just the same way the internet did, just the same way that electricity did. This is a fundamental step change, and the way to think about 5G is zero latency reaction time to something, an event, and with access to infinite compute power in the cloud. So the things that you can do when it takes no time, zero time for something to react, and you've got huge infinite compute power in the cloud, these are massive new opportunities. So everybody wants to talk about autonomous vehicles. Yes, that's an example, and it's a good example. But think about healthcare. If you think about you wearing your wearable and it's monitoring every second what's happening to your heartbeat and one other vital sign. Imagine if you could measure 5 or 6 of your vital signs in real time and then have the output compared via algorithms with infinite compute power with the globe's output and making different things happen and then feedback and change what's happening to you. And all that begins to be possible. So there's an entire raft of new applications that will be invented, new devices that will be invented as a result of the liberation of 5G. Sadly, most people think it's all about more reliable voice calls and faster downloads of video. That's 1% of the 100% of the application layer that will yet be developed. It is true I've been called that. It's ridiculous, of course, because she was married to a despot and I'm married to a charming lady.